So thanks very much. Thank you very much for coming. My name is Dominika Tasasztracka and I am a senior marketing specialist and community builder at Payara. So what I want to talk to you about today is really going to focus more on the individual perspective of how you as developers, as engineers can contribute to open source projects. But I really liked what Sarah Novotny said yesterday at her keynote, and if you haven't seen it, then please do watch the recording because it was really good. And she was referring to the same topic, but more from a business perspective, how businesses and enterprises should really appreciate and understand the huge presence and importance of open source technology. So today, I would like to talk to you about how developers and engineers can help raise that awareness of open source role, open source importance in the world of tech, and not only by using open source projects, but also by contributing to them. So I guess all of us here hopefully know what open source is, considering we are here at the OCX conference, but let's take a step back and look at the official definitions for a second. So in a nutshell, in really simple terms, open source is software that, with a source code that anyone can inspect, modify, and enhance. But I really like this definition from Open Source Initiative, which goes into those details that I really want to focus on today. So the fact that open source promises the higher quality, better reliability, greater flexibility, lower cost, and end of the vendor lock-in. So textbook's definition is one thing, but what does open source actually mean in practice when it comes to us, users, software users, being part of them, and not just as consumers of those software products, but also potentially as committers and contributors. So today I would like to focus on the 4 core elements of open source: empowering collaboration, skill enhancement, community building, and continuous learning. And in the true spirit of open source, to build this stock, I actually asked for some contribution. So I asked a few of my friendly Java champions that I have a pleasure to work with a lot, asked them to tell me, and some of my colleagues as well from Payara, I asked them to tell me what their experience is with their open source contributions, with their journey with open source projects, and how those contributions impacted their life, their career, what they're doing right now. So this presentation is very much a collaboration on its own. And honestly, there's only as much as I can tell you about open source contribution. I think it's really important that we ask people that are involved. It's even better than those who do it almost daily and experienced all the benefits, share those with you as well. So expect a lot of quotes today and of course some gifts. So let's dive in. So I'm being a bit cheeky, and I stole this one. Well, not really. I didn't really steal it because I asked Mike's permission. So it's obviously from Mike Milinkovic's keynote presentation from yesterday again. I really like this. So when I saw it on the big screen, I was like, yes, this is exactly what I want to talk about. So this is the Eclipse Foundation mission statement from yesterday. And yeah, it really matches the open source message that I really want to talk to you about today. So the mission of Eclipse Foundation is ensure user freedom, empower developers, and enable collaboration. And this is pretty much what open source is all about. So first thing I want to talk about is how open source contributions empower collaboration. So open source fosters collaboration among developers, and you are learning from diverse community. There are people within those projects, there are people with different skills, different experience, completely different outlooks and approaches to the technology. They would have different backgrounds. There would be juniors, seniors, people at different levels of engagement within the project itself, but also within the Java community. So this is where you can learn from. This gives you a lot of opportunity to learn from people from different backgrounds and seeing how they contribute, what their approach is. You create robust solutions collectively by working on open source projects. They would not be able, obviously, to exist without this collective effort. You get exposure to new ideas, to new methodologies. As part of the open source projects, you get to experience this collective creativity, which is invaluable for your own personal development. And again, quoting Sarah Novotny, and I will be mentioning her a lot because I really liked her keynote yesterday, she said that open source is about transparent and collaborative development, and that is exactly what it's all about. So yeah, we all are in this together. So this is going to the quotes from some of my colleagues. This is one from my colleague Peter, who I occasionally work with to create some educational content. Peter's example not only shows you the spirit of collaboration with open source projects, but also it's a great example on how your contribution to the project can actually directly affect your career and help with taking that next step. So Peter says, I submitted a contribution when I met someone from Payara and asked them for some simple task. The feeling was awesome when it was accepted. It doesn't matter that the fix was literally to move one letter inside one line. It took me several hours and fixed an existing problem. And I really like that. I really like that quote because it also shows you that you don't need to contribute huge amounts of code. You don't need to you don't need to spend hours on fixing something for your contribution to be valid, noticed, and appreciated. So needless to say, when hiring for the role that Peter currently have within Payara, his contributions, his activity within the project before weren't omitted, and it was definitely an important element that decided that he joined the team because obviously he had already a lot of background on working on the project itself. And actually, and this is again great timing because Peter is currently featured as one of the committers to Jakarta EE project, because obviously Peter is also contributing to Jakarta, both through Payara and directly. So again, this is how this works. So you put an effort in, you contribute, and you get noticed, you get appreciated. So that's a really good timing actually. And then the next quote is from from a Java champion that I have pleasure to work with quite a lot, Otavio Santana. Otavio is a great example of how open source contribution can literally build your career. You can build your career on open source contribution. So if you don't know his work, please do check it out after. So what Otavio says is, I owe my entire career to open source community, which has nourished and sustained me. I have been fortunate to work alongside some of the best software engineers learning Java programming, experienced developers who contribute to OpenJK, and honing my skills in the Jakarta technology from the community that created the platform. Thanks to them, I have become proficient in both. So open source communities have huge power to nourish your potential. They can show you which direction your skills should take you. You can observe and watch where you actually want to go, what would be your next step in your career, what projects you actually want to start contributing to. Maybe you want to change your career path. You can watch and learn from those open source communities that you are part of and you're contributing to. So if you choose the right project, and what right means, we'll talk about it a little bit later, you will find the right people to learn from. You can observe what they do, what contributions they make, what their approach is, and how they tackle the problems, so you can learn from them. And you will also see that even the most experienced Java developers still struggle. So this is especially, I think, important for people that are just starting within the industry. Even people that have 20 years experience still have bugs that they can't fix, and they go to community if it's an open source project, and quite often they find fixes there or ask for help, and they receive that help. So it really makes you feel part of the community, and no one is really behind everyone. We're all in this together, and it's all collective. So all of the points that I am focusing on today, they are obviously interconnected. So I did talk a little bit already about how contributing to open source projects enhances your skills, but let's just focus on this area solely. So skills enhancement within open source, when you work within open source projects, you obviously, it's inevitable that you will learn new technologies. You will learn new integrations, you will learn new IDEs, new tools. You can pick what you want to focus on more, but this is where you get this exposure to new technologies that otherwise you might not have exposure to, because you are focusing on your own thing within your business or within your personal projects. You will refine your coding skills unless you don't contribute code, which is also the case. You don't have to contribute code. And again, we'll talk about it a little bit more later, but most of you would be contributing with code. So obviously you will be practicing, you will be learning more. And you will explore different project management methodologies. And this is something that I think a lot of people don't realize or don't talk about when we talk about open source projects and contributions. It's not just about code. You can do documentation writing, you can do admin work, you can clean up the GitHub repository, you can manage tickets, you can do typos correction. So possibly things that you would not normally do in your day-to-day job, maybe things that you avoid doing, but those things also need doing. And if you can spend your time and help in that way, then that's enough. That is very really valuable contribution as well. So let's see what others have to say in regards to how open source contribution help them enhance their skills. So this one is from another Java champion that I work with quite often, Mike Redlich, who is a leader of the Garden State Java user group. So Mike says that he's learned a tremendous amount by contributing to the open source projects, the GitHub processes, creating pull requests, learning about documentation tools such as ASCII-Doc and Markdown, automating a number of processes via Maven and Gradle. So again, it's not just about learning how to code. The whole experience is a learning ground. So you learn how to use GitHub properly, how documentation works, where it's hosted, how it's managed, how you can automate processes. All those tools that lead back to the project, you have them available for you to use and learn from. And even if you make mistakes, again, that's how you learn. It's actually even better to make mistakes on the projects than, you know, if your job is on the line. So this is your learning ground, and you also have a lot of eyes on you, and not in a negative way, in a positive way. There's more people involved, so more people may notice any mistakes. Lots of projects also have their own guidance, so a lot of people may not know about it. Sometimes you just go into the GitHub project and you see the first page is actually the guidance, how do you start? So quite often it's really difficult to take that first step. A lot of projects will tell you what the best first step is, whether that's for you or for the project itself. So have a look out for that if you don't know how to start. And all of it pays off eventually if you have to do a similar work for your next project, if you have clients, if you work on your own and you have clients that may work for the next client, if you are looking for a new job and you have an interview, again, you can quote all of these things that you have contributed. Those things are not forgotten, those things are not going away. You can use them to prove what you know, what your work ethic is, what your methodologies are. It's all there for you to be used beyond this project as well. So, okay. And the next one, again, from Ottavio, because he is a really good example there. In addition to hard skills, he says, I have also developed my soft skills. I have learned effective communication and confident presentation. So this is another example where you see how open source contributions are not just about enhancing your coding skills. There is so much more in those projects that you can learn about and learn from. There's communication skills themselves, collaboration, teamwork, even language skills. And when you go to events like this one, or if you go to your local Java user groups, again, you can network with people that potentially work on the same project with you. So it's a learning ground on so many levels. So the next part that I want to talk about is community building and product. So that's a little thing that I added there, which is really important to me. So this is the area of the open source project's contribution that is really close to me and what I'm doing at Payara and what I've been doing within the industry for the last nearly 14 years. So open source projects by their nature are driven by passionate communities. Most people that work on those projects are doing that because they want to, not because they have to. And so as true communities, they have shared goals and values, they provide you with lots of networking opportunities, and they give you the opportunity to get some unofficial mentoring and support. So just a bit of a context maybe to explain where I sit within all of this, because again, community building is actually part of my role. So as a senior marketing specialist and community builder at Payara, I am really passionate about building Java communities, and especially with Jakarta EE. So how many of you are actually using Jakarta EE? Any of you? So, because I do use quite a lot of examples coming from Jakarta EE, but Jakarta EE or Java EE really. So I've been in this industry, I've been in the Java industry since 2010. And I started my journey working with all of the main application servers that were in the market at that point. I was managing Glassfish user group in London. I was managing JBoss user group in London. Around 2013, when Oracle decided to stop supporting Glassfish, the company that I was working for, C2B2, that actually funded Payara as well, we had a lot of background in Glassfish, and we loved Glassfish. We still love Glassfish. And we thought it can't be abandoned like that. So let's try and support it, right? And it was, again, all about community, because it was an open source project or open source product. And we started, but then we found out that actually without building the product, we can't really support it. So we decided to fork it, and this is, again, another amazing thing about open source projects and products. You can fork the code and do your own thing under specific rules, but there's that flexibility there. So we did that because we wanted Glassfish, Glassfish heritage, what Glassfish achieved over the years to keep on going, right? And we had amazing community behind us and going with us and helping us. So that's how Payara project started, and that's 2013. And then by 2016, we actually had a full-on community version of the product, Payara platform, Payara server at that point, actually. And that is all through the power of open source contribution and through the literally love for the technology that those people, those contributors were using, and they didn't want it to go away. So I've witnessed this power of community spirit firsthand since I've started, and I think that's what still keeps me going within this industry. That's what I love about it. So Payara would not exist without it. And most importantly, Jakarta EE would not exist without it. So the truth is that even years now, from those purely open source project beginnings, we still rely on the community, not just Payara, but Jakarta EE itself. And we rely on those community contributions. And I will talk about the Jakarta EE angle a little bit more specifically later. But let's see what my colleagues have to say on the community building aspect of their open source contributions. So this is a quote from Ilias, Payara product manager, and this shows you a little bit unique view of how open source contributions are received on the other end. So Ilias, as a product manager, he says we rely heavily on our community members and their experiences. Their help in identifying the right problems to solve and the right way to solve them is invaluable. Payara is first and foremost a product developed by the community for the community, and this is my favorite part. The enterprise Java world is huge, and no one person or company can steer its direction. So that's it. So if we're talking about projects that actually also have a product behind them, this is where product managers need. So they need to listen what community does, what community wants, where community is struggling, what challenges they face, and what needs they have for the projects and for the product to meet. So for product managers, product builders, community involvement in open source world is invaluable. So how else would they know what to focus on? How else would they know which features to work on? We can't really stay in our own bubbles, and it happens a lot, unfortunately. Yes, and we can use those services from market researchers, we can do marketing surveys, and we do those, but really it doesn't quite work like this on its own in this industry. We're heavily driven by open source, and we need to appreciate that and understand that. And this is exactly what Sarah was talking about in her keynote. Community contributions for those projects basically dictate huge parts of the projects and product development future. So as contributions, so what does that mean to you as contributors? It means that you help to steer the direction of the product if it ends up being a product, because it's not always the case. Sometimes it's a project, sometimes it's a project and a product. So you help to show where the attention should be focused on, where the attention is needed. To help define the roadmap, you do define the roadmap through your contributions. You are essentially a part of it. So this is why I say it's not just community building that we do as part of the open source project. It's also a product building, and you get a chance to define where the product goes through your contributions and through your suggestions and anything you do as part of the project. So next one is from Tanya Obradovic. So hopefully you all know who Tanya is, Jakarta Program Manager. She's somewhere around here as well today. So she says our contributors can influence the future of cloud-native open source Java and build new relationships with leading players in the Java ecosystem. So this is just to sign off really what I've just said. Your contributions, literally, they write the future of the technology that you're contributing to. And it's actually even bigger than it seems. And I know it may sound big, but think about what companies use Jakarta EE technology. It's huge companies. It's the global businesses that run infrastructures that we all use every day, your family members use every day. And you contribute to the project that runs those businesses. This is huge. This is actually a huge thing. And I don't think we realize how big that contribution is. And especially here talking about the context of Jakarta EE. You are contributing to the leading Java market technology and have part in deciding where it goes, how it shapes the future of the Java technology in general. So you really have influence here. So you should feel empowered. So just to sort of summarize, the contributing to the open source project, you become part of the community of the project you choose to contribute to. You often get fixes quicker because the community, especially if it's a big community, if it's a community that is really that is quite active, you get those fixes quicker than probably for non-open source projects where you have to rely on the roadmap that is run by the specific business, and they only have their own staff that are focusing only on things that they decided to focus on. Often users share those fixes that they themselves struggle with, and they spend hours or days on fixing it, and they give it back to community. This is amazing. It's a great thing, and you do the same. So you benefit from fixes that others contributed, and you also contribute back if you can. And your contributions really build the project that you are contributing to. You are part of that project. So those contributions drive feature development. They obviously do bug fixes, documentation improvements, shape the overall direction through the discussions and feedback as well. So before I move on to more practical advice on how to get involved in open source projects, let's talk about the final benefit that I want to focus on today, which is continuous learning. And this point, we obviously, again, I've already touched on in various aspects already, but let's focus solely on this. So by taking part in the open source projects, you stay updated with the latest trends. Again, it's inevitable that you will see technologies and have an opportunity to use technologies that you've never used before, or you don't normally use. And this is your opportunity to try them, to take them for a spin, give it a go, see whether that's something that you actually want to take away. You learn to adopt best practices. Quite often those projects that you contribute to, they have rules, like I said, they have people overlooking them. So like with Payara project, we obviously have a team that overlook the project itself in GitHub and how it operates. You can learn how to adapt those best practices, and again, you can take them away for your own project, your next client, in your day-to-day job, and you do explore the emerging technologies. So again, the pool to learn from is huge. Like I said at the beginning, you get a chance to work with people from all sorts of different backgrounds, different approaches, different ways of learning, different ways of approaching the technology and product. No place of work really will give you such variety as most of the open source projects would. So to summarize this continuous learning aspect of the open source contribution, here's the quote from David Hefferfinger, another Java champion that I have pleasure to work with a lot. So David says, open source contribution facilitates networking. It puts you in touch with very talented software developers, which can help your career. It also shows potential employers that you are a self-motivated individual, and it is a good way to show your software development abilities. And I don't really have much to add to this, to be fair. David said it all, and I've mentioned it already. The opportunities to learn and put those newly learned skills into practice are endless with open source projects, and especially they are interchangeable, so you can use your skills for this project and then take them away and use them for your next client or your next job. And these are the things that when you contribute to open source projects, whichever one you choose, and we'll talk about how to choose the project as well in a moment, you may be using the skills that you don't normally do on your day-to-day job, and this is the learning ground that you have the opportunity to take from. And those, like I said, are traceable. You can use them. You can take them away with you. So the key here really is that you learn everything every time you make a contribution, every time you make a suggestion, every time you fix a bug, every time you add GitHub comment, every time you do pull request, you learn. So we talked about how open source contribution, what it brings to the table, how you can benefit from it. So hopefully those of you who are maybe not contributing to the projects yet, maybe you feel like you would like to try that. So where do you begin, right? So the first thing to do is obviously choose your project, right? So how do you choose your project? This is probably the biggest and most difficult step, where to focus your time and energy on. So the advice really, and not just my advice, but in general, when you talk to people that do a lot of open source contribution, is start where you already are, right? Don't look for something to begin with. Don't look for something that you don't know. What products are you already using, or projects that you are actually using already, but you don't contribute to? And again, quoting Sarah from her keynote yesterday, engaged with projects you depend on. That would be the best advice, really. So something where you already are and projects that you already depend on. Start there, because that gives you already a good head start, because you know to some extent what they're all about. Take a look, go to GitHub, take a look at the issues. Is there anything that you already know answer to? Anything that you already are working on? Is there anything you actually just feel like you want to help with? Like, this looks interesting, I want to dive deeper into that. Check if anything is missing in the documentation. This is one of those things, again, that you don't really talk about a lot when talking about open source contribution. Documentation is super important. We all rely on it. We all moan when documentation isn't good. Then help and fix it, help and improve it if you can. So, because we all need it. So this is another way of contributing, not necessarily the code, but something that is really, really important. A comment on the issue, start conversation, just even as simple as that. And like I said before, check if there are any rules, because a lot of projects would tell you where to start, and this is the best way. So the tips really are choosing the projects that are aligned with your interest or that you depend on. Understand the project guidelines and the contribution processes, if there are any, for that particular project, and start with small contributions and gradually increase your involvement. So how you can contribute in practical terms? Code, an obvious one. Obvious one is code, and this is what most people will contribute, especially that they will begin with that. But that's not the only way to contribute. Do you know UX and UI? Can you help with usability, accessibility? Can you do design? This is another space that you can contribute. Help with documentation. One of the really good examples is translation. We're all, most of us are international, there's the international teams, the contributors for the projects are from all over the world. Maybe this project needs documentation in the language that you are actually, this is your native language or you know it really well. One of the best examples is for the Jakarta E project. We have a really great Chinese community who is doing tons of translations for us. And again, that helps this project grow in that particular area. So if you can contribute your language skills, do that. This is another example of how you do it without actually coding. Admin work, I already mentioned that. So do some GitHub admin, help with GitHub organization, close tickets, maybe delete the ones that are too old to even look after because they're not relevant anymore. This is also a really, really valuable contribution. Get involved in the forums, take part in the discussion. So basically, advocate for the project, talk to other people about the project, share the information, use the project or the product, demo it, use it within your workplace or within your own personal projects, write about it. If you have a blog or if you want to start a blog, if you have social media channels, share the information about the project that you are involved in. This is also a valuable contribution. So again, it's not just about code. So I wanted to show you on stage. Yeah, we've got some time. So this is a little short video that Jakarta EE, Eclipse Foundation Jakarta EE created to help people that are wondering, how do I contribute? Like, where do I start with Jakarta EE? So let's have a look.
Want to contribute to a cloud-native open source project like Jakarta EE? It's actually pretty straightforward. Anybody can contribute by following these 5 steps. The first step is to create an Eclipse account. When contributing as an individual, you need to sign the Eclipse Contributor Agreement, which confirms your intent to provide contributions of code and documentation under the licenses used by the Eclipse projects to which you're contributing. However, in the case your employer is already a member of the Jakarta EE Working Group, your employer has a member committer and contributor agreement in place that covers all their employees who are contributing, and you do not need to do anything. Based on your interest, you can then visit github.com/eclipse-ee4j for the code and specifications, or github.com/jakartaee for the jakarta.ee website to find a project that interests you, and read the project's contribution guide to learn more about coding style and other guidelines. Next, write your contribution. This typically takes the form of code, documentation, or collateral submitted to the project source code repository. When your collateral or code is ready, you will then need to create a GitHub issue or a pull request. This is your opportunity to tell others about changes you've made to the project. After an issue or a pull request has been opened, you'll work with the project team to review the potential changes and add follow-up commits before your changes are merged into the base branch. Once your work has been merged, you will have successfully contributed to an open source project that will be widely used. Congratulations! You are now part of the Jakarta EE contributor community. For more information on becoming a Jakarta EE contributor, visit jakarta.ee/getinvolved.
Yeah, so that's a really simple way of starting a contribution, and this is obviously specific for Jakarta EE, but it might look very similar for other projects, and this is where you can start with Jakarta EE. So I do definitely encourage you to do so.
What?
So, quick recap. So we said that open source contributions are all about collaboration, skill enhancement, community building, and continuous learning. I think there's more to that. This is what I wanted to focus on today. And so how do you contribute? If you were to remember just 5 things, really, 5 initial steps. Start where you already are, or as Sarah said yesterday, start with the projects that you depend on. Start small, don't jump right into the deep end of the pool. Start small so you don't get discouraged, see what you can do and take it from there. Learn from others. This is why this is a community, this is why it's open source. It's all about learning from others, observing and doing it all collectively. Give back. So obviously, again, I said you can use the contributions from others, but also you contribute towards the work that others will be using. And enjoy the ride, really, because it's all supposed to be good and fun as much as possible. Thank you. I don't know if there are any questions, but yeah, go on.
So you have illuminated the topic from the point of view of the developer. Why should I contribute back and how do I do it? Now, how about from a company point of view?
Okay, yeah.
You know, how do you incentivize your developers to take part? Because, you know, so we've done a lot. Like, we've told them why. We've told them how. We made motivational videos.
Oh, wow.
Freedom here. This you have working time, and so it is working. See contributions, just not as many as we would like to.
Yeah.
Want to do more? Any suggestions?
Yeah, so I think, and again, I said I'm going to quote it a lot, but I think Sarah's keynote yesterday showed, she had some really good statistics to show how much of those businesses depend on open source. And I think you need to talk money, and I think you need to maybe even talk about the risks, like if you don't spend enough time on caring about open source that your business depends on, and then we've got those statistics that Sarah was showing yesterday, this whatever percentage it is that your business depends on open source. If we don't put effort into it and something goes wrong, you lose money, and you lose a lot of money, and you lose your reputation. So I think this is the type of the conversation, unfortunately, that we should be having. What are the risks that are involved if you don't do it? How much you can lose? How much money there is actually that you are really investing in open source, but you're not directly investing the money in that sense, but you can lose the money if you don't look after the open source projects that your business depends on. So I think that's where I would start the conversation, and I would literally even take away those slides that Sarah used to show those statistics, because she had really good examples. But ultimately, it's a really difficult conversation to have. It's a struggle, and we're still struggling with that on our side as well.
So if the company actually understands, is giving that message to the developers.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's also not the problem. The problem is just really get the developers to do it.
To do it, so to be fair, so do they get time within the work hours to do it? Because that's, again, because obviously if someone wants to contribute in their own time, that is totally up to them. But if they, well, add it to the job description, maybe literally just make it and obviously it's not going to be this fun thing, oh, I want to contribute, and it is almost like, okay, this is part of your job. But if they see the results, then hopefully, which is what I was talking about, and hopefully this will make them more willing to do it actually just on your own, rather than being almost forced to do it because it's in their job description. But yeah, it's interesting actually. Yeah, I need to think about it a little bit more, because usually we're struggling with other way around it, and with businesses not necessarily understanding, but usually developers are quite keen. And again, it depends on the project, right? If the project is something innovative and fun and something that will enhance their skills and learn new technologies, and it's something that is of interest to them, then it should really take off, right? But quite often things are not as exciting, but they are very useful. So if their job depends on it, they should do it, really. And why not? Yeah, go on.
So I think there's a couple of ways of looking at this. You can take the route of their job depends on it, but I think there's an alternative motivation is to say, well, we have things like who is our star contributor, so like reports, and that then feeds into the idea of can you get HR on board with like reward programs, some kind of recognition programs where you're saying, hey, here's a leaderboard, top contributor of the month, contributor of the year gets a free holiday. I think there are various motivational rewards you can give. Some can be of a financial holiday product, car for Mercedes. Contribute if there was a car in there.
Oh, I bet they will start contributing then.
Developers, one of the things that motivates a lot of people in the open source world is the development of the notion of recognition. So I think take the notion of recognition from the open source community, bring it to your internal community. Because I think that's quite powerful when people, they stand up in the hallway or there's a big leaderboard and it's, I'm at the top.
Yeah.
Exactly. Thank you very much, Chris. I saw also what we're doing is we ask developers about their experience when contributing, and then we spread the story. And so just recently, one of the developers reported to us in the hospital and said, we did this, and it was a wonderful experience because blah. And we said, so confirming all the points you made. And so we're that's one thing, we spread the news of like this is a great thing, do it.
Yeah. Thank you. That's really good. And obviously those projects, they run those recognitions programs, but if you can do it internally as well, and then again, you can reward with sending them to conferences like this one. If someone is really keen to speak, because some people want to stay under the radar, and that's absolutely fine, but others may want the profile to be raised, right, and go to conferences and even do talks and or just network. That's another incentive. So, but again, you need to contribute to talk about something if you're going to the open source focused conference. So very individual approach as well. It really depends on what they are sort of motivated by, right? I think Neil is there.
You talked about developers and organization, but can you say anything about non-developers and how they can contribute to open source?
Yeah. So this is me pretty much. I'm not a developer, and one of the biggest ways I think if whether that's product managers or marketers, it's the bit that I mentioned about talking about the product, mentioning the product or project, mentioning the project, sharing what the project is all about. So talking about mission, vision, and just sharing, spreading the word, just basically evangelizing about the project that you want to contribute to. So this is exactly what I'm doing with Jakarta EE, because this is something that I'm really passionate about, and I will not contribute code. I'm not going to try, but I can contribute. What I'm doing right now is a contribution, and what I do pretty much day to day at work as well and beyond. So this is I think, and again, you need to find it. It's very it depends on the individual. Not everyone would want to go and do public speaking, but then if you're a good writer, write a blog about how to contribute to your project, or what the recent release was all about, and then what the recent fixes were. Try and go to Java user groups if it's focusing on this particular project, and you don't have to. You can talk talk to those developers, learn from them, see what they need, what they want to talk about, and maybe help them, like advocate for them. So yeah, so it plays on your strengths, and every contribution really is valid. So yeah, depending on what you're really good at, play on your strengths, and that would be a valid contribution as well. I think we're running out of time now. So thank you very much. Thank you for the questions. Thank you for the involvement as well. Thank you very much.